Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Talking Horses. Sarah Obadwe and Andy Serling. As we come upon a Saturday card here, the rain has finally stopped. We're still listed as sloppy. I'm going to assume that it's sealed, but at least the sun is out, so perhaps things will dry out a bit as we go through the day.
Yeah, plenty of wind as well, so that'll help things along to get closer to an upgraded racetrack.
Let's head over to Naira Bets. If you're not a member of Naira Bets, use the promo code BONUS200. We'll match the $200 of your initial deposit. Once over there, check out Track Trends as well. Also, we have a $10,000 hit and split, the late pick 5 here and Woodbine. So here and Woodbine, I'm guessing 5,000 each. Get more information over at nairabets.com. We have a cross-country pick 5. Well, there you go. So, 1 at Aqueduct, 2 at Tampa, and 2 at Del Mar, starting at 3:38 with our 8th race today. We have a show today. I think we're on from noon to 5. Are we on FS1, Eddie, do you know?
I think early, and then we switch over.
They switch over at some
later.
point. Not everybody realized post time was 12:10 today, apparently. We're also on at 1 o'clock tonight, or this morning, or Sunday morning. That's just about 15 hours or 14 hours from now. 1 to 2:30 showing the Japan Cup on FS2. Greg Wolf will be the lucky man up in the studio here at the Big A. Well, race number 1, there will be a heavy favorite, and we'll take a look at Bank Frenzy's last 3 ace of his last race, where he ran very well, couldn't catch the loose in the lead, Mama's Gold. I don't know, Sarah. I just thought he was better than these horses.
Yeah, I agree. His last 2 races are just faster than what we've seen from many of these horses as of late. I thought that he was one that had to take up a little bit going into that first turn, just steady on the brakes just for a moment, and then just made the sustained bid to get into position by this point. And Mama's Gold had a very cozy trip, loose on the lead, just was able to last things out at a huge price.
Well, wait a second. Mama's Gold went 47.5. Mama's Gold ran a hole in the wind.
But no one was pressing him.
Okay. I'm not going to sit here and argue with you. The horse couldn't catch a horse that ran a 103 buyer.
Okay. Well, he also was very far back, and he was the one that made a long, sustained run. He's just faster over his last 2 races.
His recent
than what
races
we've
seem
seen
better.
recently.
Yeah, because like the competition's probably the 4. Classic Legacy we'll take a look at, and he's the 2-to-1 second choice. And yeah, he's not impossible, but he finally got his second win after a boatload of seconds. And he's a horse that's running buyer figures that are slower than we're seeing from Bank Frenzy. And the recent form of Bank Frenzy just makes him probably the better horse. The one concern I have is that Bank Frenzy seems to have lost that speed that he once had. Could he be compromised by pace? The question is there a horse good enough to beat him, like the 1A or the 3 that are going to be forward? And for me, I didn't see that horse.
Yeah, I didn't either. I think that he was a little bit slow out of the gate, 2 back, but he did get himself into a stalking position, at least, Bank Frenzy. So I don't think he needs to be as far back as he was last time to be effective. So I just didn't really like any of the pace players to be able to beat him.
Race number 2, well, you got a situation in race 2, and I'll be interested to see if the entry's favored or not. And we've got Poppy's Gold we'll take a look at here, finishing second, with Cold as Hell finishing third. But there's never been a more inaptly named horse for a trainer like Rick Dutrow right now, because he's the opposite of Cold as Hell. His horses are winning. I mean, I guess he's had 7 winners now in New York, or 8 winners over the last 9 race cards. And believe it or not, yesterday's winner was the first one that didn't either equal. One had equaled, the others had all set career tops. Yesterday actually didn't set a career top.
Oh, shocking.
I know, it is kind of amazing.
Disappointment of the barn.
The way the barn's going with a horse who's live, I'm not getting in the way of this freight train.
No, I mean, this horse was already coming in with some races that would make him competitive regardless. So then you add the trainer stats that we've seen as of late. I mean, I looked up past 25, past 15, past 10 days. It's just increasing within the money percentage, win percentage, ROI. I mean, he is just on a roll right now, and this horse is adding blinkers too, and he is one that at times has been able to be a little bit closer and be a little bit more engaged early on. I just wasn't trying to beat him in here, and I definitely didn't want to take an entry as an alternative to a horse that's just going out for a barn that can't seem to do any wrong.
I don't disagree. Gemography, we both have second here, does have an occasional race here and there that seemed good enough, and I also took him as my alternative here. I'm just not a big Poppy's Pride fan, to be honest with you. Both halves of the entry have races that give them a chance, but these days nobody seems to have a chance against Rick Dutrow.
No, form or not, doesn't seem to matter.
Race number 3. Landoro is running today, and we'll take a look at him last time, the horse you have on top. He had been scratched out of a seemingly easier spot. Obviously, maybe he was sick or something as he's come back, but he had been scratched. And I guess he's the horse to beat. It's funny, the pace projector has him as the speed. I have trouble seeing that, Sarah.
I have a lot of trouble seeing that based on this race that we're showing here, especially because he's the one towards the inside making up some late ground here and was defeated by Tall Paul and Yo Banana Boy. He was coming off a little bit of a freshening. I think that there are some legitimate excuses for the race that he was in at Saratoga over Belmont at Saratoga. You wanted to be inside, you wanted to be forward. He didn't get out of the gate all that well, and then he was off for a little bit. So I don't know, maybe with the blinkers on today, he does show a little bit more early interest in here. I will say it doesn't seem like there's a ton of dead set confirmed speed.
No, there's
though.
no real speed in this race. I don't disagree, and I've always liked Landoro. And listen, he was in the best part of the racetrack last time, but he was compromised by a pace that held together, despite the fact that they came home in such crawling fashion the last 3/8 in over 41 seconds. So it's a little bit of an odd race, and he ran, and I agree at Saratoga, but then he misses the whole summer.
Yeah.
Then he runs, then he is scratched again, and now he comes back. And I just thought Liberty Central would be better off with a little bit less distance in this race than the mile and an eighth. And I don't know. The one thing that I worry about a little bit, and this is his last start, is I don't think he ran that well on a sloppy sealed track 2 races back. It wasn't a bad race. It still may be a race that's good enough to win here. I thought he kind of lacked his punch there, and I figured he'd be forward. I was going to pick Landoro, but the more I looked, I don't really trust him. And I thought the only other horse you could look at is Colomio coming in off that claim. He was claimed by These Connections. Trainer was Ken Sweezy. Now it's with Charlie Baker. And he's kind of the oddball in this race. And I guess he's not impossible. He's run figures that are fast enough to win here.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if the plan might be to be aggressive with him because he at times can be forward when he's run on the dirt, and that might be helpful to him when there isn't that confirmed speed in this race, and he is going to
go
be
for the
towards
rail,
the inside.
right?
Right, exactly. We know that Dylan is just able to certainly take advantage of that if necessary. But with
what about Romero? Do you think he goes with Petrolo? He's not that fast, but Romero is such an aggressive rider. I wonder if he's looking at this race and thinking, man, there's no speed in here. I don't know that definitely hurts the two, but I wonder if a horse that's not really fast enough for a guy like Romero who likes to send, he's got to be thinking my best chance to go, right?
I don't disagree with that, but I don't necessarily know if he's fast enough. I think that he's one that he was forward in that last race, as well as the couple of starts that he's had where he's been successful at Finger Lakes. But
yeah.
I don't know if he's quite going to be.
He's not as fast as other horses here, but as you know, around here, intention can have a lot to do with how the horses are placed. Race number 4 coming up. I just went to the 2 Just Clarity because there's no form whatsoever on the dirt. This horse ran against much better horses, was wide against a gold rail. This is in the dirt race in September 22nd. There isn't a single firster in this race that you look at and you go, oh, I really definitely want this one.
Nope.
So it feels like Just Clarity's first race may be good enough against the bias and a 40 buyer. So the bias has a little more experience. He runs a 51 buyer. It may be good enough to win here.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, I really wanted to pick somebody else in here because you do have these first-time starters that are seemingly interesting before you get into it, and then there's just really not a ton there as far as trainer stats or pedigree or anything to suggest that somebody's going to fire at a price first time out. And he just was running against horses that have come back and proven to be better. Bold Fortune able to win next out and get that 84 buyer and then the 89. I mean,
I also find it hard to believe he won't be favored in here. I mean, I wouldn't want to make these morning lines, and it's so much guesswork, but you've got a Jeremiah Engelhardt horse with Louis Rivera, no disrespect to Louis, but you've got a Kerry Bryan firster with Javier, listed at shorter prices. Why are these connections going to get bet in here?
Versus a horse who's already run twice, who has that race where he was clearly against the racetrack, against horses
well,
that have
I don't, you say clearly against the racetrack. The amount of people playing in the race, playing money against the racetrack, I don't think that's going to come into play, but he ran a 40 buyer. And maybe there's something about these, but there's not a lot sexy, with all due respect. I mean, Run-a-Dub-Dub was a moderate, lower level claimer that ran here a few years ago. The Dama Run with Honor. One of 4 foals could run.
Right.
The 7's got no pedigree to speak of at all. Maybe they get bet, but I got a feeling Just Clarity is going to be 2 to 1 or something.
And I think that some of these works are okay, but there's nothing that suggests like, oh, this is the super live first-time starter.
And there's no Irad Ortiz or even Flavian Pratt to be taking money in this race.
Yeah,
so we'll see what happens in race number 4. Race number 5. We'll take a look at Skytown. I think the horse we both have on top. The second place finish behind Sacrosanct. He's another horse that's been against the track in his races. He's run against better horses, and I thought he ran fine his races and thought he was perfectly logical.
Yeah, I mean, look, some people might see the 2 seconds and think, well, is this a horse that's starting to develop a habit? But I don't think that that can be definitively said about him by any means. I think he's had a little bit of trouble getting out of the gate and been bumped a couple times, but he's run second to horses that have both returned to improve significantly. And he just seems like a horse that maybe we do get something closer to a more of a fair price, because you do have those intriguing firsters or horses that maybe took some money first time out or did run well in their debuts.
Who are the intriguing firsters?
I thought that Riff was a little bit interesting for Brad Cox.
Well, he's a
I looked at
Calumet
the one
horse
for a little bit.
that they pay 50,000 to half to Malu. He's going to take money because it's Brad Cox.
Exactly.
I agree, but I don't, other than that, I mean, there's a
Dutro
huge
firster.
price for this Chief Liam, $380,000. The first foal from a dam who ran 60 buyers. Maybe there's somebody in the second generation. The second dam's not much racehorse, but that's a lot of money for that horse. I wonder if he'll take money. Yeah, you've got a Dutro, but man, that Dutro horse worked 10 2/5 the 2-year-old
Yeah,
sale.
I looked at the one a little bit too, but Mitch Friedman not exactly known for firing with his first-time starters, but the work seemed decent on this
Well,
one.
his first-time stars have been running pretty well this year. I mean, whether they've won or not, he's had some big-priced horses that have outrun their
Shown up,
odds.
yeah.
I know this horse worked 9 4/5 of the sale. He's not my cup of tea, but he might be the most interesting of all the firsters. And
Yeah.
because it's Mitch, he's not going to take a lot of money. And
Yeah.
frankly, Mitch's horses have been running. I
Yeah.
mean, it's we saw the one win yesterday. I was in the bad field. But you've also got horses like Volatile Situations and Sir Cartwright that are going to take money in this race.
Right.
They got buried by Kenny B, but Kenny B is pretty
B's
good.
okay.
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with either one of these horses. I've got them second and third.
Right, and I don't think this was one of those days that was a super gold rail by any means, but I think it was still beneficial to be forward and be towards the inside. And you can tell that neither of those two finishing behind him were in that type of position in this race. And Kenny B had already had the experience. He was coming in a race where he had stumbled forward, but still had that forward position. He ran well behind that Wesley Ward horse that you liked a little bit, that won the stakes race. I mean, these are just horses that have run against a horse that we know has come back and proven to be okay.
Right, he ran 2 buyer points worse, so it legitimizes the race he ran. And both these horses now have one race of experience, and they're very logical. I would tend to want to stick to the horses that have run, but we'll see. You never know with firsters, and we'll see who gets bet. We'll take a break. We'll be back with the late pick 4 after these messages.
50 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Welcome back to Talking Horses, race number 6. So, Cumberland Blues coming back in 7 days after conquering Valenzen Day, something that hadn't been easy to do for quite a while. Got it done. And, I'll tell you what, I like him cutting back from 1 1/8 to a mile, but maybe you missed the boat last time. Can he win back-to-back?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's been in good form. It's not as though that last race was a big surprise. It's just that Valenzen Day was on this ultimate tear, and he had run a good second to him in the start prior to that at a big price. He had run numbers that have been progressively improving over his last couple. I just sort of wonder if this might be a tougher group of horses, because you do have a couple that are dropping in class or have been in some good form as of late that are relatively competitive with him on paper in his last race.
Yeah, I don't know how much tougher these horses are. I don't disagree with you. There wasn't much else in there. He did get a perfect trip last time. It was a very, very contested pace that fell apart. He saved ground. He had a lot of good things go. He got a very good ride by Lane.
Yeah.
I think he's dangerous, but like you, I went against him. The horse you have on top is, he's the question this race. I don't know if he's going to be 9-2 or 9-5.
Yeah.
We'll take a look at his race, and he was beating a nose 3 back, and he obviously runs that race. He's going to win here. but he's claimed by a person who's owned horses, and he started training on his own. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but his form has completely and totally fallen apart since the claim, to the extent where he's dropping this horse down now to 12.5, half of what he paid for him just to move on. And maybe the drop down, he's going to show up and run, but he's one of the hardest horses to know what to do with on this card. But obviously, he runs his race, he's going to win. But
Right, and he's one of those horses that you see the board beforehand, and if he is 9-2, then maybe you are a little bit wary because, or
I don't
if
know.
he gets bet a little bit, I don't know.
know.
It's hard to tell how this type of horse is going to be perceived by bettors because, yes, he has sort of really fallen apart over his last few races, but you go back to the types of fields he was facing, race 2 back is better than this.
Right, but it's not. It's a story. In other words, his form didn't fall apart just
Magically.
on its own. He was claimed by a trainer that has not had a lot of experience. I'm sure he's worked in the backstretch some, and once again, but still, as a player, you don't have all that information, and whatever you want to say, this horse has completely and totally fallen apart since he's been claimed.
Yeah.
Completely. And now he's running for 12.5. He may win this race. He also might run 7th, and I agree with you. I mean, I got him second. I'm not knocking you for picking him. I of all the horses running today, he feels like he's a complete.
He's not trustworthy.
Yeah, he's just an all or none. He either wins this race or he runs nowhere. And,
Yep.
and I agree, and the temptation, but I couldn't go, so I went to Ski Country, who I just thought has been running the most consistent races of anybody, some against better, and I just sort of fell on him as the alternative. I don't
blame you.
particularly like Steiner. I want to see him bring that form here from Finger Lakes, from out of town. I guess it's not impossible,
Yeah.
but not sure what to do with him.
I just don't know who he's really been facing.
Winter's
you know?
Ghost, his form fell apart. Maybe
Yep.
Pat will get him back on track. I won't be shocked if he does. But I don't know. At
He's
least
really-
the 1A has
yeah.
been running competitively,
Yeah.
and the 8's off a win, and he's going to be probably close to favor,
And
depending on what
he's,
the 4
he's
does.
had good form that he's shown over a couple of races, so the back-to-back doesn't really bother me with him. So
I took a long time making picks for this race. and
yeah,
I
this
settled
was
on the
was
1A.
not my favorite.
Race number 7 lost a big player when Brown Sugar Babe came out of this race. And we'll start out with Athena Beach, who's the morning line favorite. And once again, I wouldn't want to be David making the line for this race. And you can see how tightly bunched he has him, which suggests he just doesn't have a lot of confidence in who's going to be favored. This horse going to get 7 furlongs in today's race. Probably is the speed, but isn't Sunday Girl supposed to go a little bit?
Yeah.
And this horse rode a gold rail in this victory here against Mozienko, who got completely left in the race.
who ran very well the other day. I mean,
Ran badly, Mozienko.
oh, sorry, I'm thinking of someone else that begins with an M. Everybody gets
I
her
just-
last race was not
Yeah,
good.
I don't want this horse at 7 furlongs. She wins, I lose. I got her. I've scratched into her for 3rd, but I'm not thrilled.
Yeah, and I think that Sunday Girl is going to show some footwork position. She can be a little bit more tactical, but
She's fresh. She drew inside.
Right.
How is Katie not going with her?
right, it would not make sense to not go with her.
I agree.
And Kali Magic, I don't expect her to be on the lead, but she's not slow. She's not going to be
No.
so far out of things early that she couldn't be a factor if they wanted to be.
And at the end of the day, I like her more than I like Athena Beach. I know Athena Beach has some good figs. I thought Cali Magic was in an impossible spot last time trying to chase the likes of Nick's style. The time before that, I thought she ran extremely well. The pace was very contested and fell apart.
Yep.
And she hung on very, very well. I like Cali Magic off those races. She's pretty consistent, this horse, for the most part. But you've got Shady Lady on top, who I've got second on the turnback.
Yeah, I mean, a horse that I have the confidence that she's going to be able to get the 7 furlong distance. And I like that she has taken a step forward in terms of her numbers from 2 to 3 that we've actually tangibly seen. I know that she's one that was facing some solid horses over her last couple of starts. She's at least been competitive in these New York State Bred races, or the ones for the New York Stallion Series. I ended up scratching into her as my top picks. I originally liked Brown Sugar Babe, but I think she's just proven some consistency with these types of distances. I don't expect that she needs to be embroiled in some sort of early pace, and I don't think that she's a horse that's going to be too far out of things early to get involved. So I just trusted her overall form coming into this race.
Yeah, I struggled with her because she got very lucky when she won 3 back. It was a ridiculously fast pace that fell apart in the late stages, and she was the right horse in the right place, and Javier gave her sort of a perfect ride. I do think there's a chance that a mile and 1/8 is past what she wants to do best. And she's improved. And if that's the case, the turnback should help her. I struggled. I feel like she's either really the right horse or really the wrong horse.
Yeah, I didn't
And I'm
love
not
her,
sure
but-
she's not the right horse. I thought about putting her on top. I don't know what to do with Sunday Girl. We'll show her last race because she's got to get faster. But you are talking about a 3-year-old that hasn't been out now for 4+ months. She has a right to improve. But then again, where's she been?
Right, and I think that the barn is going very well. David Duggan, I saw one of our fast facts for today.
Please don't give me that stat.
Okay,
Please don't
I
give
won't
me
tell
that
you.
stat.
I won't spoil it, but I actually thought it was
It's a
something
funny stat. It's a stat about Lasix off. What's interesting about it is they cherry picked a time period, and if they looked at 5 years, it sucks, the stats.
Yes.
So, and also,
It's
there's
also
a
not
difference
they, it's
between
computer.
there's a difference between going off Lasix because you're going to stake race
Versus-
and going off because you've made a decision. And I've noticed in looking through the horses in the sample that the 2 more interesting horses were horses that weren't going off Lasix because of a stake race. They were going off because David obviously has decided they may
Made a
not like
decision.
Lasix. Whereas, and then there's a big price because Can't Hurry Love won by a nose and just fitting perfectly, by the way, into the timeline that they came up with. So I did a little research on those stats.
No, look, hey, I don't.
I'm not-
They're not
not
big,
your fault,
big
not-
contenders as far as, but it's something that I thought was at least relevant to 2 horses in this race. I know that it's a cherry picked time period.
Well, the reason
but
there's another reason the stat's meaningless. This horse won Lasix off.
Yes.
So you don't need a stat. You've already got a horse that you know can win without Lasix because she won her second career start when she went to a stake race. So this one you could even say without some
sure, look,
silly
it's
stat.
information that is at least true. And that's,
Yeah,
that's a hard
when you
thing
get
with
into
some of those-
territory, and this is not your fault in any way. I don't want
I'm
to say
not
it.
making that.
Right. When you get into territory that you're making stats because you feel you have to have a stat for a horse, you will do nothing to help people betting, and they'll know that. Whereas with this horse, you've got the answer to say, well, she won her debut and she came back 2 months later and ran 4 Buyer points 5, taking Lasix off. So we know that she can win without Lasix.
We do. I think it's more just it's something that is true and is a conversation to have if someone wanted to. Does it matter? Maybe not. Maybe not at all. But at the same time, looking at this horse, and that's not exactly anything that had anything to do with influencing my decision to put
I'm
her
sure it
second.
didn't. I just, that's why I.
The
I
barn
think-
is going well. I think that her race going the 7 furlong distance was a major disappointment, but that was a fast pace in that race that really backed up. And so I don't want to hold that against her to say she can't go 7 furlongs or she can't handle a track with some moisture.
She
in
had
it.
no shot in
I
the-
don't
in
think
the
that
Bowery,
that's a
right.
good representative of her ability to do either. of those
I
things.
agree. She's the one that has the right to have the upside in here, and I don't love her either. I mean, you have her higher than I do, but I'm not going to be shocked when she wins this race. I mean, she may be the one that you want moving forward.
Maybe.
A lot of these horses, it's not like the 6 is that good. I mean, Cali Magic has some good figs, but maybe she's better when she's absolutely forward and with other speeds in here. So she can win here.
Yeah.
And then the 8th race, the Stallion Series, comes up. And I guess we'll start the conversation with Antonio of Venice and Doc Sullivan. My reasoning behind leaving Antonio of Venice out is, A, it's a very, very competitive race, and you can't fit every contender in your top 3 or 4. Also, you've got a horse that was going good that disappeared for 7 months. Now, is it possible that Rudy said, this horse hasn't had much of a break, though he did have 2.5 months off in the middle of those 9 races. You want to give him some time? I doubt it. And I just find it's hard when these horses lay up and then they come back to catch that magic again against a very, very tough field. And Doc Sullivan has the recency, and I think he'll appreciate the cutback. And I just think he's the much more logical of the 2.
Well, and
As do
also
you, obviously.
with Antonio of Venice, I think it was reported that he had some sort of foot issue, and that was the reason for the absence in time. But you look at that last race of his, it's a 91 Buyer speed figure. It's his only speed figure in the 90s. And then you look at what Doc Sullivan had done after that, and he was able to go this distance over a surface with some moisture in it in the Mike Lee, earning a 91 Buyer, and then running races that are fairly consistent to that following that time period. He does have more of the recency, and so maybe he's the horse that improved a little bit going forwards, whereas Antonio Venice has some catching up to do now with the time that he's had off.
You know what's really, really unfortunate that I'm realizing looking at it?
What's that?
He was the recipient, well, he had finished first, and he was in the race with the craziest DQ in history,
Yep.
where they actually, as opposed to taking the wrong horse down because they weren't paying attention 40 years ago, this one they actually thought there was a case for it, and there wasn't. We're not running that day. I really feel like
No.
December 16th should have been a day of
So,
celebration to celebrate the wackiest call in racing
a
history.
game changer for sure. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we can all celebrate at home that day.
Some kind of celebration.
Yeah,
I
the
mean,
celebration
listen,
is that it won't be repeated.
they're both good, and you know what? So's Lightman. You know,
Yeah.
Lightman. We'll take a look at his race last night. He got a good trip. He got a good setup, but he also ran well. And it's not like he's not a good improving horse. I just wonder, though, you missed the boat at 8-1 last time.
And
It'll
the
be a
time
shorter
before.
price in sort of a race. And also, I'm not sure that some of these horses aren't better. I'm not sure that Doc Sullivan isn't better than these horses.
Yeah, I think that he is the one that has shown a lot of consistency as of late over his last couple of races. I know that he was in against a federal judge two back, who then went to have that impressive win at Keeneland in a stakes race. But overall, the price that he has been over the last couple of races versus the price that he's likely to be today is maybe
What price
maybe
is he
the
gonna
third
be
or fourth
today?
choice.
He's going to be 9-2
But
or
he's not
something.
going to be
isn't he?
8-1,
What price does David have him?
9-2.
Yeah, I mean, right. But listen.
But maybe he's the fourth choice, and you think he's interesting. He just hasn't run a race that's as fast as the top two or even General Banker.
Well, General Banker will take a look at winning 2 races back. I don't, and I think he's a good example to show you how good Bank Friends he is and how much Mama's Gold just ran these horses off their feet. One thing about, I mean, the consistency in his speed figures is almost remarkable when you look at him. And he shows up. Jimmy's done a great job with this horse. He drew well on the outside. He is perfectly logical.
And he's really been able to hold good form since he was a 2-year-old. I mean, he was on the Triple Crown Trail here, running some good third-place finishes at big prices, and then he's
they thought he was on the Triple Crown Trail. He
Well-
wasn't really on it. He was sort of prancing around the edges of it.
he ran in races that have points, you know. But look, he's found what he likes to do as far as running against the New York Reds or running it, even in open company. It's still being very competitive. I just wonder if he might get enough pace in this race, though I think that the 7 furlongs will help his cause with that.
Yeah, the pace is interesting because Antonio Venice, he checks his speed. But I'll tell you something, isn't Lightman going to be a lot closer today?
Hasn't
I
he
mean,
been?
I even remember, Kendrick joking after the race he won. He said, I thought we were going to be the lead. They just went too fast. He's not slow, that horse. And listen, Antonio Venice is fast too, assuming he comes back and runs well. We'll see how contentious it is. And, one of the reasons on my silly horse is I think that he can be forward in here. I don't love Ciccio Bella. Is it Ciccio Bella?
Bello.
I don't love this horse in here, but this is a horse that at times has run figures that are fast enough. I am not going to hold chasing the fast pace against him, chasing wide 1.1 miles. He's not 1.1 miles horse. But you look at his 2 prior races with an 88 and 86 buyer. Now, I have a little trouble with that big fig at Monmouth, but considering how well he ran, relatively speaking, the Evan Shipman in Saratoga, I think he's sort of verging on running fast enough to be competitive. I don't love him. But he's going to be a big price in here.
Should have position.
And I just thought he has races that flirt with being fast enough to run with a General Banker. He's going to be 3 times the price. I don't think he ran that badly 3 races back. I'm going to give him a little bit of a chance. The horse that also scares me in here is BD Saints because I know that he's a better turf horse, but how much better is he really? You think of that second place finish on a wet track in the Sleepy Hollow, behind a good horse, Del Grande-O. Obviously, things didn't work out in the next start, but he ran that race on a wet track. It's not like his Albany was really that terrible, and maybe there's an argument that he's suddenly come to life because he ran very well in both of his last 2 starts,
And
particularly
also,
last time.
in the race where he was favored and he didn't win, that was that DQ race with the wrong horse. So I don't think that went well for anybody, really. Except
Well,
for
I don't think
Antonio
that had
Venice.
any bearing on his finish. The point is he has run other good dirt races, and the light has gone off his last 2 races. I mean, it's not like his dirt form, he wasn't running figures
different
as fast as he was
for the
running
most
on the
part.
turf. And I think he's a very, very interesting horse in here that might be capable of running competitively
Yeah,
in
I
here.
thought about him for a while. No, he definitely makes some sense.
And even Dr. Kraft was 15-1, who you and I don't particularly like. It's not like he's a bad horse.
No,
He's pretty good.
He's very consistent when he's in good
Just a
form.
little-
He's been off for a little bit, but I mean, maybe
Couple
just
low.
a couple low.
Yep.
He's also one that sometimes can show some forward position too. So I don't think he's quite fast enough to be anywhere near the front in this race, but it's not as though he's devoid of speed at times.
I feel like this is as tough a New York Stallion Series race as I've probably ever seen.
This
We've
is a
got
good race.
lot of good horses in here and a lot of horses that can win. Race number 9. What'd you do here?
I went to a horse that's was able to show some speed last time at least, dropping in class, and that's Lightning Mama, who stumbled, 2 back, but then stumbling start last time out. Diesel Rock was able to be forward and get the jump on that field, and I don't know. I think that the obvious horse in here is Rodeo Star taking the drop in class, and Jorge Abreu has some very good numbers with blinkers coming off, but I just wanted somebody that might be a little bit of a better price who at least has shown some flashes of early speed.
Yeah. I hope when they start doing the chart calling, and I applaud Equibase for consolidating their chart calling, they stop with this 7-8 wide upper stretch. This is not helping anybody.
Nobody's going
It's not
7 or 8
really
wide.
true, and it's not really relevant. What's relevant are wides on turns. And this horse was a legitimate 4 wide on the turn in here, and I thought ran against much better horses. Just seems to make a lot of sense to me. I went 8, 9, 7. The 9 got involved in the pace in his debut. He could be forward. I don't have anything smart to say in here. I searched and searched and searched, and
Yeah, I looked at Wave a little bit. The Sisters have to listen to your heart. Second Dam was also a winner. There's some pedigree, but they're debuting
those
here.
Mr. Monomoys, you're waiting for the,
Oh, I know.
those Mr. Monomoys.
He's
And
waiting for
Ray,
his big break.
Ray, when is the last time you won a race, Ray? Since I know he's watching. He actually was joking with me the other day. He was running a horse that I didn't
guarantee
like.
he
and-
knows
and
exactly
he
when
said
he'll
he's
tell you
running a horse he didn't like, and he liked the horse, and he texted me and he said, "Why don't you like this horse?" And I'm not sure if it was with you or somebody else who did like the horse. Maybe Maggie, and I was just going back and forth. And he said, "Listen, I haven't won a race in Saratoga, so I think he's won for something." We're picking on you, Ray.
Oh, boy. The 3, Hey Maggie.
Okay.
Doesn't this horse have some pedigree?
Yeah.
To be
Well,
in
this.
well, one foal that was great, and then a bunch of others that didn't really do a ton of running.
I'm glad you brought this horse up because I actually had a conversation about this horse with a friend of mine.
Yeah.
His horse is a half to horologist
Yeah.
who ran triple-digit buyers, got very good for Bill Mott just a few years ago. It's a Spites town as well, and this horse is being offered a filly for $25,000. And
Who are an aid for 110,000 last October.
hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
I just, a Spites town with that damn side.
Yeah.
I mean,
and while the other foals haven't done much, they haven't had opportunities to show that they can't do anything at all.
I'm going to guess this horse comes out with 2 heads, but anything's possible. But you're right. No, this horse has a very interesting. I discussed this horse with a friend of mine about whether or not we thought somebody would claim this horse, and it's just the one horse horologist probably not going to. And they know that they would keep the horse for a broodmare, though. I guess.
Well, clearly
crazier
expectations
things have
are
happened.
not going the way that they planned.
But you're right. No, this horse is a half to a very, very good horse. And hey, Aka Ira is a half to Brock Nardini.
Yeah.
We're going to go so I can get something to eat after spending 14 hours. I'm like, what's that children's story about the man who never returned? Ever read that story?
Your future? I don't know.
It's a song. It's a song. It will ride forever on the streets of Boston. He's the man who never returned. I'm sure people know that. I think it's probably one of those camp songs I heard.
Oh.
About
Yeah, I know the
is
one
that
about
it?
the moose. I don't know.
See, Eddie knew.
Eddie
Charlie
knows?
on the MTA. Yeah.
Oh,
Was
okay.
it was
What is this,
Boston
like a
though,
Boy
right?
Scout song?
Right, Eddie? Is the song called Charlie on the MTA? Because it's in Boston. Isn't it the line? He'll ride forever in the streets of Boston. I feel like that guy. Yeah, I could still be at J Street waiting for the train getting out of here. Anyway, thanks, Sarah. It's been fun. Head on over to Naira Bets. Use the promo code BONUS200. We'll match for $200 of your initial deposit. I would have lost a lot of money that Eddie knew that song. I got to tell you.
Yeah, that's a big upset.
My entire feeling about you has changed.
Yeah.
I
Now you're
really
cool,
liked
Eddie.
you before, but now you've gone to the stratosphere. I like you almost as much as I dislike Kyle.
Oh, at least you make Kyle laugh.
Anyway, head over there. Check out Track Stats when you're there as well. I kid. We love Kyle, even if he is a Nick fan. We have a $10,000 hit and split, late pick 5 here in Woodbine. You want to opt in for that? I think I'll take care of that while I'm sitting here. And
Is that Menti?
I don't know. Menti.
I wonder what
I
the
don't know.
selection process is for
Has
these
he finished
photos.
the Breeders' Cup yet?
No.
We have Cross Country Big 5, and this is a smorgasbord of Aqueduct, Tampa, and Del Mar get involved a little after 3:30 today. We'll be showing Tampa on the show today. The show is from noon to 5, I think. We are showing Tampa. I think they're running right on top of our races, so that should go well. And this is it, though. You got to stay up for this. I'm going to do whatever I can, Greg, to be there in spirit with you from 1 to 2:30 Japan Cup. It's a fun race.
It is,
Japan Cup's
yeah.
a great race. And Greg, who's actually been there a few times, has never been able to experience it from the third floor at Aqueduct. So
I mean, it's really a once in a lifetime.
His journey just keeps on trucking along. Anyway, Sarah, thank you so much. Chris Griffin, he will be up next. The reprise of Scratch and Changes. Have a great day.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.